State Senator Republican from Virginia Beach, Jeff McWaters. He's getting set to go to the General Assembly. He might be there now, for all we know. Senator, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. Good rainy morning to you here in Virginia Beach. I'm heading up tomorrow to Richmond to start the General Assembly session.
Well, it's going to be a short session now. You got to get a lot done in 45 days. I want to start, Senator, if I could, with the Bob McDonnell sentence. The last time we had you on was a day ahead of time. You were heading up there to show support for your friend Bob McDonnell. He got a 2-year sentence with 2 years probation. Just looking at this, nobody wants any time in jail. We all thought that the best thing to do would have simply been do community service, but it is what it is. Certainly, though, it could have been a lot worse, right?
Well, I think it could have. Although, you know, when you're speaking from the shoes of a free man like you and me, that's
right.
That's one thing. But when you're someone who believes in your innocence, believes you didn't do anything in terms of taking bribes, that kind of thing, I'm sure it seems like a very harsh sentence. So we were there for a sentencing hearing, and I think that the range originally from the United States was 10 to 12 and a half years to end up with 2 years with still an opportunity to appeal the whole thing. At least he has that shot, and so I guess I feel a little better than the longer sentence for sure.
The McDonnell attorneys, Senator McWaters, trying to have the governor stay free on bail or bond, if you will, during the appeals process. On paper, it makes a lot of sense because the appeals process in Virginia could take longer than the sentence that the judge imposed on him. Do you think there's any chance at all of that happening?
Well, I'm certainly not a lawyer. I'm only involved in this issue as a friend of former Governor Bob McDonnell and just as someone to try to support him and his family during this very, very hard time. And so I'm really not a lawyer, but look, I don't think he's a threat to society. I think that the opportunity for him to be free while he's working on a very complicated, expensive, which he doesn't have the resources to fund, appeal, makes a lot of sense. But again, I'm not a lawyer or a judge in this situation. Just a good friend of the governor.
Senator, as you go into the General Assembly now, 2 days away, a lot of action packed into a short period of time. What are your top priorities?
Well, as a caucus, we've worked on our priorities, and as individuals, we work on priorities. And there's certainly the, really important things like energy, the opportunity to produce jobs in Virginia, and that's all kinds of energy resources that we have here that we're rich in that we're not utilizing, frankly, and could keep us out of a lot of issues around the world if we utilize those resources. Certainly the opportunity to attract business to Virginia, particularly looking now at businesses, U.S. companies that have invested in foreign countries and looking at opportunities for tax credits or other things to help those companies relocate products and services back in the United States. Our port, the opportunity to we talk about being ready for the increased size of new container ships coming through the new Panama Canal, but our dredging process is still not finished. We have to some state funding that we have to keep in place and some federal funding we have to keep in place to dredge down to 55 feet. So there are a lot of big issues, higher ed, K-12, a lot of issues that we've been fighting for, relooking at the SOLs. And then there's some very interesting kind of smaller local issues that sometimes I find as interesting as some of the large issues, which I'm also happy to talk about.
Which are?
We live in a coastal community, obviously. John, I know you're now booming across the Commonwealth, but as you know, I serve the 8th Senatorial District here in Virginia Beach, and 2/3 of my district is covered, is surrounded by water.
Right.
And so, I'm continuing to work with local community groups to do things to make sure this natural resource we have here, the Chesapeake Bay, the Lynn Haven River, remain, clean and important resources. I know sometimes as Republicans, we kind of get beat up on as people who don't care about the environment and don't care about the great earth that we live in. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here right now, John, it's very unusual, looking out my window, talking to you on the phone, with 2 American bald eagles up in a big loblolly pine tree in my backyard, and if that's not a really cool place to live. we're blessed in a very unusual environment, and I've seen things on the Bay in the last few years that, as a legislator, I've talked to community groups, and just, one is the question of should we continue to have the enormous amount of plastic bags distributed in our shopping stores in our community with the negative effect they're having when these bags get into the water. Starting to look at that issue. We have issues of requirements for oystermen to put PVC piping here in our bays and channels, and yet I see very dangerous PVC pipes that are broken, hidden by boat propellers that are just very dangerous for boaters and water enthusiasts, etc. So things like this, we're continuing to look at. There's been a concern about large balloon releases that end up out into the ocean and the tributaries. So, these are not probably typical Republican issues, but they really are, because we do too care about the environment that we live in and making sure we give something to our kids that's better than we had it.
So, what specific legislation, Senator, are you going to be behind that would lend itself to, that would be conducive to some of what you just articulated?
Well, we're looking at a ban on plastic bags. We're working with some of the retailers and some of the community groups to see if there might be an opportunity to really try to move people towards bringing their own bags to the grocery stores. A lot of people do it. It's not that hard to do, or having paper bags available. It's in particular these small plastic bags. So we're looking at that as an opportunity to give the community the opportunity to decide if they want to discontinue the use of paper bags in grocery stores. That's one, for example. I'll tell you another one, John, that's gotten a lot of interest is higher ed. It's this issue of, when kids go off to colleges, their parents for years have been planning and budgeting and borrowing money, et cetera. And yet there's no real understanding of what that cost might be in year 2, year 3, or year 4. So we're looking at giving the opportunity to the colleges to set a 4-year tuition. 1 or 2 colleges are doing it now, so that families have predictability on college education. These are kind of the, you call yourselves the common sense, and we're trying to look at just common sense rules, regulations, laws that we can change that affect people's, everyday lives, as well as the big stuff we're trying to do.
Makes a lot of sense, Senators. Big supporter of Mitt Romney in 2012, Senator. Now we hear Romney telling his big donors, wait a minute, don't be giving this money to Jeb or Chris Christie. I might decide to get back in it. I'm taking a serious look at it. What do you think?
Well, I think he is taking a serious look. I've had a chance to talk to some of his folks. It's been now about 3 weeks ago, and frankly, a lot of us, and this was before Jeb Bush really had gotten onto the scene, we're really saying, Mitt, things aren't that different. The country's in the exact same situation, perhaps even worse than it was when you were saying the same common sense kind of things you were saying as a candidate. So, look, I know that a lot of people say, golly, 3 times, you're trying this for a 3rd time, but I think America's worth it. We need great leadership. And so of the candidates out there, I still think he's the right person to run America. And I hope he gets in. I do. If he does, I'll support him as aggressively as I can. I've been friendly with, not day-to-day friendly, but helpful to the Bush family, throughout my career as well in politics and in business. And Jeb would also make a good candidate. But if Mitt's going to do it, I would hope Jeb would stand down and Chris Christie and others would stand down. And let's not have an elongated, expensive process of running each other down as Republicans. Let's try to get behind a candidate that can change the country.
So, Senator, it seems like from what you're saying that you have talked to some people close to Mitt Romney who has confirmed that he's taking a very serious look at this, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, now let's go to something that you said 3 times. There was another Republican president that ran 3 times before he got elected. Do you know who that was?
I think that's Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan ran in the 1968, was a candidate became a candidate for the nomination at the convention in Miami that Richard Nixon won. Then, of course, we all know he ran in 76, lost a primary to Gerald Ford, and then ran again in 1980. So sometimes 3 times is a charm. It certainly worked for Reagan. Senator, I want to get to Medicaid expansion. Terry McAuliffe still running up and down Virginia, saying that he's going to find a way to get Medicaid expansion through we look at the disaster now that is Obamacare. I mean, this thing is such a disaster for people that had health insurance. Now, for those that didn't have any and now they have it because it's subsidized or it's free, I guess that's a good thing, obviously. But for many Americans, I mean, they have just been hammered financially with this. Deductibles way up, their level of office visits down, their premiums up. Now we're trying to expand this in Virginia. I don't know where the governor is coming from here.
Well, I'm not sure either. I mean, look, it's a populist issue. I understand that we're sending money to Washington, and, you know, even as Republicans, we'd like to figure out how to quit sending that money to Washington and get Washington to start using the money we already send them, which is too much to run our country. But look, we're going to try another approach. I touched on it, I think, a couple times ago on the show. Some states have used an approach where hospitals have, in essence, been assessed a fee that went into the state coffers, and then the way the federal rules work, us getting then a match to that amount to be used not for Medicaid expansion. I want to make sure people understand that. We're not talking about Medicaid expansion, but we are talking about a way of getting a federal match for indigent care that several of our large hospital systems are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a year in health care for people that don't have insurance. And so if there's a way of getting some of our state dollars back to match the ability to continue to help people in private clinics through indigent care services, et cetera, we're going to take a hard look at that. That's not Medicaid expansion. That's simply doing what other states have been doing for some time to fund indigent care with money they're sending to the federal government. So that's something we're looking at. I think it would be a real problem to expand Medicaid. We already see it, and we know that as a state we can't afford the Medicaid we have today. So to expand that would be a continued disaster of a program that's just broken.
Well, it is, and so this 400,000 gap, if you will, those that make too much money to qualify for Medicaid expansion but can't afford insurance, what's the answer for that?
Well, you know, obviously, this is America. People don't die on the streets. So the day-to-day, minute-to-minute answer, which is not a perfect answer, but the answer is there are clinics, there are emergency rooms, there are physicians that give a lot of services away. That's not a perfect scenario for people. We understand that. But looking at ways where we'll encourage people to work, encourage people to work at the level they can get tax credits, those kinds of things, that's going to cover a part. You know, a part of that population can afford health insurance, has been able to afford health insurance, and just don't. So if we can get at that part of the population, those numbers get down more closer to 250,000 people. Mm-hmm. The other thing, John, we got to remember is we act like it's 400,000 people, like here they are. You know, here's John, here's Jane, here's 400,000 people. That's not the way it works. This is a group of people that move in and out of the rolls of the uninsured. They may be uninsured for 6 months. They may be uninsured for 8 months, you know, and then they may have insurance for 6 months or a year. They may qualify for Medicaid as we have it today. John, people say that we're stingy as a state. 1 in 8 Virginians, 1 million Virginians, spending $4 billion a year are already on Medicaid. Mm-hmm. We're not that stingy. 1 in 8 are on Medicaid. And so to try to do things to encourage people to get insurance, keep insurance, get a job, but then at the same time, you know, we do give a lot of money out in indigent services. It's not the best system of care. I recognize that, but people are still getting health care.
Well, it's we've got a long way to go with it, but certainly expanding a broken system makes no sense whatsoever. I want to thank State Senator Jeff McWaters for being with us today. You can follow Jeff. Just go to jeffmcwaters.com, jeffmcwaters.com.